Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shop Talk, hosted by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. So, welcome. This is a new year. I suppose it's technically not the new year because we already had an episode of Shop Talk in the new year, but it's still newish. It's the new-ish year. And welcome in. Welcome in the one and only Anders. Literally the only Anders. Legally, there are no other Anderses allowed, so that's the only one. I didn't make the rules, but I will enforce them, and I will enforce them in such a way that I benefit the most from them. But that's not what we're here for. Shop Talk is not, in fact, a legalistic exercise or an opportunity for me to write things off on my taxes. No. This is our chance to come together every couple of weeks, have a little fun, a little bit of discussion. Howdy, but can't stay live. Might see you at Day of Data Chicago if you're there. Hope to see you there. It's a Data Saturday, I think. Can we talk about the CUs? Yes, we will definitely talk about the CUs. Well, in fact, I'm going to put that at the top of the show. So
I'm guessing something is odd about those two CUs. I haven't been keeping up.
oh yeah, that's okay. I'll make mention of it because
I live more in the Databricks world these days, so I keep up with SQL some, but not a whole lot.
yeah, it's rough. This is not a great time for installing updates. Worse than 6.5 SP3,
Oh wow!
maybe.
Oh wow!
I think that there was a worse. There was a worse CU in I think it was 2019, where if you had transparent data encryption and backup compression, that your backups would be corrupted. So I'd rate that one as worse. This one's bad. But anyhow, before we get into it, we'll get into it very soon. But this is Shop Talk. It's Monday. We're kicking back. We're enjoying our evening. We've got half empty glass of water. We've got some good people here. Speaking of good people here, we have Mala. Speaking of one and onlys, the one and only Mala, which is good because I don't want to have to try to pronounce Mala's last name too often because I mess it up so often. But
That's right.
how are you, Mala?
I am doing well. Good evening, everyone. Nice
All
to
right.
have you back, Anders. We missed you.
Yes, we did miss Anders. Although with more practice, I think we'll get him next time. So let's talk. Let's talk about borked updates. Let's talk about missing. This is SQLServerUpdates.com. Had a real good reason last time. It's fair. It's fair. Um, didn't want to be here. Didn't want to be among the plebeians. I mean, that's as good a reason as any. Anders actually became king of Norway for about a week, but then they deposed him. So, it was kind of a tragic comedy. You might actually see it in a future mockumentary. But what we have here not only is a failure to communicate, but a failure to appreciate. We're going to say appreciate. And the thing that we're not appreciating is the cumulative update 1 for SQL Server 2025 and cumulative update 23 of SQL Server 2022. It looks like SQL Server 2022 CU23 has actually been pulled, but CU1 of 2025 is still there. So you might ask, what the heck is going on? Why would we have an issue with this cumulative update? And it turns out that for these updates, for SQL Server 2022 and 2025, when they packaged the update together, they kind of forgot the executables associated with database mail. So if you try to run database mail after installing those updates, you will get an error that you cannot load a file or assembly. Database mail.x events. So there's a DLL that's missing. And I think there were also, I mentioned executables. I'm pretty sure it was executables plus DLLs. So it wasn't just a DLL that was missing. It was several things that were missing. but yeah, like Andrew says, this is a pie in the face moment. Like this is, I'm old enough to remember when Microsoft would parade about just how much testing they did on their updates, just how strenuous the testing system is, and how these updates, you didn't even need to wait for SP1. Waiting for SP1 was a joke. It was a silly thing. How dare people do that now? And I'm like 10% tongue in cheek on that. 90%, I actually was in discussions. I forget exactly where, so I don't want to try to remember where. But in discussions with Microsoft people, I'm pretty sure they were public. And anyhow, this was like 8 years ago, so it's a while ago. But talking about, hey, look, we've had so many stable releases of SQL Server. You don't. Yeah, this was right around the time when they were getting rid of the service packs concept, and we're going straight to CUs. And the old advice was wait for SP1 of a new Microsoft product. And so the SQL Server people, the person who was talking, said it was kind of insulting, I think was the term. Kind of insulting that people are waiting 3-6 months to try out this product when there's all of this testing that goes on, there's all of this process that's in place, and these updates are consistently good. And then something like this happens. I mean, I was 3 years ago or so right in that same boat of, hey, there's no real need to wait for CU3, CU4, or whatever, or SP1. I mean, you'll be waiting for Godot at that point because there hasn't been a service pack since 2016. Version 2016. It was, I think, in the year 2018 or so. But there haven't been any service packs. So the advice now, I guess, is kind of wait for CU3 or so for things to stabilize. But the problem is that when you have a release like this, where, oopsie, we just forgot components. I mean, I get it. I get that it does happen, but you start asking the question of, well, what is your test process? Are you actually testing these things? The claim is yes. But I think we also learned a while ago that Microsoft had laid off, like about 2017 or so, a whole bunch of QA people.
That's correct. I had a friend who was on QA, who was one of them. So that is a fact. She and her team, everybody was let go.
Yeah, and there, that was a pretty big factor. I mean, I know the argument was, well, Azure SQL Database effectively serves as a live test platform, and we get all the bugs worked out in Azure, and then the box product is rock solid. Except that we've now had multiple CUs get pulled since that point. And I mean, multiple is what, 2, maybe 3. Definitely 2, maybe 3. I think actually SQLServerUpdates.com may even tell me the ones that got pulled. One of these, SQL Server builds, this is Brent Ozar's, if I remember right. This is the...
Yeah, there's another one too. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another one that's Aaron Bertrand.
Aaron Bertrand, I think, maintains that one.
So let me see. Yeah, okay, 2019 CU7 was removed. 2019 CU2 broke SQL Server Agent, but it technically wasn't removed. 12, 13, and 14 had an issue around availability group automatic seeding. 2017, I don't think 2017 had any pulled. Looking back here, nope. So 2017 did not have any pulled. 2019 did. 2022 did not. So this is the second, technically third, because, well, arguably third. Basically, this one Microsoft has pulled. CU1, technically Microsoft may have removed it. Okay, they may have pulled it. So I'm going to call that 3. I know it's the same reason for the 2, but you ask the question of, well, what is the process now? You've had 3 separate releases that you've had to pull after people have found major breaking problems. I mean, this isn't just, when I found that like Polybase started crashing when you used Windows authentication back in SQL Server 2019, like CU2 or CU3. So RTM worked fine, and then it got to the point where it would only work if you had a domain Windows authenticated account. So you couldn't use a local Windows authentication account. It had to be on a domain. And that just broke a bunch of stuff, but that didn't get a CU pulled. It was just congratulations, all the people who are using Polybase, which was never that many, but those people, sucks to be you. Use SQL authentication. So, as Solomon says, well, why didn't Copilot catch the issue? It's a good question. They must not have asked it directly. Clippy certainly would not have screwed that up. I'm pretty sure everybody on Shop Talk has heard my rant about Windows 95 and how much better the intelligence of it could have been, that they actually had a functional working Clippy that was actually useful, and they removed all of that to add more clip art, because adding a bunch of clip art was going to be better than having an intelligent agent that actually understood based off of your actions, what kind of help would be useful in context. So clip art won over that. I'm sure those QA folks are available to be hired again. Yeah, but then the question is, well, would Microsoft hire them? I mean,
Not likely. Not
no,
likely.
probably not.
Yeah.
That's just an added cost, and why would you need QA people when your releases are rock solid? So yeah, that was definitely a black eye. Not a good look. Not a good look at all. Knowing that your first CU of 2025, like 2025 itself, the RTM release wasn't bad. There were a few bugs, but nothing that I saw that was show-stopping. I wonder how often that 95 clip art was actually used. The hypocrite in me should note that 12-year-old me probably used that exact clip art that replaced Smart Clippy. So I probably did, in fact, use that clip art. And what that says about us all, I shudder to think. It's pretty bad when Bob Ward has to post on LinkedIn about it. Yeah, and it's not a good look. Not a good look. So, okay. That was our SQL Server walk of shame, I suppose. And hopefully they get that fixed. Hopefully that kind of thing doesn't happen again. Realistically, who knows? I mean, like I said, this is not the first release that they've pulled in the last few years. This is now 2 and 3. And I am going to count them separately because, well, they're different versions of SQL Server. Yeah, they were pulled for the same problem, but that's still 2 separate build processes. So whatever was wrong is wrong in multiple build processes. That's reason enough to call it multiple failures. Need them to fix the session context bug. Good luck with that. That might be worthy of a fix, but boy, that's a bit of SQL Server that I don't think gets much use or love. So you might be pushing on a rope to get that one fixed. Speaking of pushing on ropes, now that's a heck of a segue. I gotta talk to my segue creator and give my segue creator a raise because that one was a good one. But next article here: can't upgrade SQL until it's fixed. Wait, so Andrews, was that something that was broken just in 2025? Because I thought it's been broken for a while. So while I'm in the new CUs, okay. So it's a very new bug. In that case, they might actually fix it. Yeah, I thought you were talking about something from the last few years. But yeah, let me drop this link in here. This is Brent Ozar's Data Professional Salary Survey results for 2026. And I will admit, I have not. Let me zoom in a little on this. I think ever since I went to the 4K monitors, the dual 4K monitor setup, I've had to zoom in on a bunch of websites, and it's not because I'm old. My lawyers will confirm that it's not because I'm old. It's because I'm considerate for other people. That's how I'm spinning that story. So Brent has been doing this for a while. This is now year 10 of survey results, and it is interesting to go back occasionally and filter through some of the results because some of the questions have changed over time. You don't get a perfect story that you can blend over the entire decade, but in some of these cases, you can remove the first couple of years and still get enough meaningful information. So, um, the Excel spreadsheet is available on Brent's website. It's downloads.brentozar.com. And, I can just put a direct link to that in chat as well. So here is the direct download link for it. And as I scroll down through here, basically Brent is looking at information for people in the United States, average salary by year. And you did see in 2025 to 2026 a pretty decent jump in the number of people who are DBAs employed in the United States.
I found that pretty strange because I know a few people who moved jobs last year and this year. Nobody has gotten like a huge hike or anything. Certainly, the numbers that he has there, even as salary for a senior person, would be a bit of a hard sell in today's market. From what I know, at least from the people I know, and I know a number of people who have moved jobs, so I found that result pretty odd.
I can understand that. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I guess I would say, like Anders mentions here, some of it depends on who's actually reporting information.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah, very
so,
much so. 100% agree. Yeah.
and what I'm doing right now is I am opening up the spreadsheet because we're gonna mess with this live. We're gonna have a little bit of fun, and we'll see if there's anything interesting that I can pluck out of this while just derping around. Um, so to do that, there we go. I'm not in there this year for North Carolina. Yeah, neither am I. I'm not in there. There was at one point where if you knew my zip code, you knew exactly who I was in this database because I was the only person in that zip code. So, uh, so this is the salary survey, and mind you, I have not really used LibreOffice Calc very much. So I am now going to try to do a pivot table. So, if I'm doing that, I'm dragging this over here. You all can check this out. My first systems admin job, 2007, made $25 an hour. Silver was $7 an ounce. If I were to try to make 3 ounces of silver per hour today, mind you, it's not a raise. Same money would be $300 an hour, 600K in salary.
Well said. Yep. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. That's yes. Pegging your salary to certain commodity prices. That's why I stick to 12 packs of Budweiser. It's been fairly stable. You know, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Okay, pivot table. Let's pivot this. And we're going to pick survey year as, we're going to do that as the row. The data field will pick salary. Filters, I think we're going to do country code. And let's just check this out. So, across the board, 2017 and 2018. So this is summations. And let's
What
pick.
do you get summing it, Kevin?
There
That
we go.
doesn't mean much.
Well, because I haven't set the properties of this particular data field. So let's do the median.
Median is good.
So we do see there has been a jump, and I'm also going to add a count. This is very exciting. This is probably the most exciting that you could possibly have on a variety show of somebody derping around and just messing with LibreOffice Calc. So you should all feel very privileged that you have the opportunity to watch me at the moment. You could actually probably put it on your resume that you're now an expert in LibreOffice Calc because you have now seen a live video of somebody struggling to use it. But one thing that I do want to point out, numbers of people, number of respondents. The last few years, it has stabilized at about 600 or so U.S. respondents. So if you look at across the board, we have about 1,000 people who've responded. And that is a little bit lower than the first couple of years. You know, like Anders mentioned, hey, some people aren't in that database anymore. They're not doing anything anymore. And I think there's a fair number of people. The first couple of years, it was exciting. It was interesting. There weren't too many openly available surveys of this sort that you could readily get information on. There would be some companies that would occasionally provide this information to their people, or you could find like, oh well, in this area, this state, here's what the average salary looks like. So you'd see some reports like that. So this was one of the first open sourced data sets for salary information for database professionals, and I think that's important. So of those 636 people, you know, let's come back. Oh my gosh, we have
Mike,
our own Mike Christensen, the one and only Mike Christensen, the man
Sorry,
of
I'm
the
late.
year, man of the year, Mike Christensen. Now, granted, it was I was gonna try to come up with off the cuff what would be the funniest example for man of the year, like something like I don't know, Good Housekeeping Man of the Year, or
We're like a planet with 1 year is one day.
could be Mercury's Man of the Year. So that could work. Make good friends with recruiters and larger recruitment firms. Good way to get numbers. Yeah, exactly. They have numbers, especially if you're talking about the very large firms. They have a lot of people that they have placed, and so they usually have a pretty decent idea of what the situation looks like. All right, let's do employment sector. We're going to slice this by employment sector, and we're going to slice this by job title. I don't know if I want job title on here. There's too many job titles. Maybe we'll filter on job title. So let's do that. I'm going to pop up employment sector one step higher. There we go. So employment sector, we're looking at, this is also another thing that I should note. This is not purchasing power parity adjusted. In fairness, up till about that point, PPP didn't matter too much because you were talking like 2% inflation. Then it got to be a lot higher and a lot higher. This year, it's not increased as much, but that is something that you do have to keep in mind, that over the course of 2017 to 2026, spitballing, that's probably about 30%. So you would take 30% of this, and that would be roughly the equivalent of that dollar amount. So if I were to do, let's just pick that. So let's say P16 times 0.7. like 98K. Maybe 30% is a little bit aggressive. Maybe it's closer to, let's say, 22%, or 25%. But you're essentially looking at, okay, if I go back to 2017, dollars haven't really changed like this makes it indicate. A lot of this increase, I think, has been inflation. So something to keep in mind along the way. But private sector, state government work, both of those have seemed to increase. Nonprofits make a lot of, DBAs make a lot of money there, apparently. But if we slice, actually, let's look specifically. One thing I want to point out is data scientist. So there aren't many people who call themselves data scientists in a survey set. This year there was only one person. That's not a good data point. So
I don't
obviously,
think Brent's audience is a lot of data scientists, Kevin. I think that's the reason.
oh, I absolutely agree. You are completely correct. If we look at DBA, this is, I think, one that Brent specifically looked at himself, and you see there's about 330 people who call themselves DBAs in the U.S., and you can see, okay, 135K a year. So what we read from this is that there are no data science jobs. No, there are data science jobs. The trick is, like Mala said, they just don't read Brent Ozar's blog in general. I am an exception. Because my job literally is data scientist. But I also didn't fill out the survey this year, so that's why there aren't two. So nonetheless, 330 or so people filled out in some sort of DBA role. And actually, let's go ahead and come back to the properties. I no longer care about employment sector, let's say I care more about job title, and we're going to slice that in. And, this job title, I think I want to add in developer. We have developers, T-SQL developers as well. Let's pick those people as well. And so just DBA. This was the first year of the survey. Brent just had DBA, and then people were like, well, I'm a development DBA. I'm a production DBA. What's the difference? The difference is apparently not very much anymore. Maybe it was never very much, but you'll notice that a lot of Brent's audience is general DBAs or production-based DBAs. But you may notice that the dollar amounts on a year-to-year basis, they fluctuate a little bit, but you're making about the same amount of money as a database developer or database DBA and a production DBA. It's just more of, do you want to be on call or not? And my answer is no. No, I don't. As far as developers go, looks like, again, number is too small to take significant information out of this, but based off of what we've got, that the dollar amounts again are pretty close. I just spitballing. Obviously, I haven't done any sort of analysis. This is literally the first time I'm looking at this data, so have not done any sort of regression, but probably not statistically significantly different dollar amounts here. Maybe not even here, especially knowing that in prior years you were looking at a much higher number. So these are only Americans that are responding, right? I filtered it to just US. But if we go across the board, here's what it looks like for entire world. And actually, let's do entire world except for US, because I looked specifically at the US. So let's look at everywhere outside. And again, 78 to 84K. This 84, I'm not going to say it's chimerical, but because there are 100 people who filled this out. But looking at the bounces, I think these numbers are closer than they appear. Same thing here, developers, 81. Now, the T-SQL developer being a bit lower, it looks like it has been maybe consistently lower across the board. So that probably not the best. Yeah, firms that are big on outsourcing. True. If I narrow down, let's pick 3 countries. I'm going to pick Bangladesh. I'm going to pick India. I'm going to pick Philippines as well. Why not Pakistan? You know what? Why not Pakistan? There we go. 4 countries. And as far as survey respondents across those 4 countries, there actually aren't many. It was only about 17 people across those 4. If we narrow it down to just India, I actually vaguely recalled there being more people from India who filled out the survey before, but it looks like India is like the only of those countries, which again also makes sense. India is going to.
So the general question for the person in Slack: how do they take care of support on our time, on US based time zones, if they have all their DBS on a completely different 24 hours different time zone? Just wondering.
Yeah, and Anders mentions so kind of to that point, but yeah, enhanced QC. I don't know if you want to chime in there, but as an enterprise, we have about 16 DBAs in the US, another 8 in India. And
Yeah,
usually,
that's typically how balance works. Yeah,
yeah,
sort of like that. Yeah, yeah.
and in that kind of case, India is more of like they're the third shift people. They're the
Right,
people who
right,
work at nights.
right.
But if you have a fully distributed team where the team is expected not necessarily as overnight support, in some of the cases I've known, usually it's a mixture of odd schedules. Like the
Mm-hmm.
US based people will work a little early, the India based people will work sometimes late night.
Mm-hmm.
And that they'll try to have a few hours of overlap. So I guess some of it just depends on how much money are you paying, how much are you willing to give to get that kind of result, I suppose. But
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you're interested in this salary survey, there's a good amount of information in here, as you can see. Company I work for had devs in India, and it had to be up to them to hand over stuff to me when they were done. Yeah, that's also a fairly common approach where you've got your dev team working remotely. So that was Brent's salary survey. As always, I do appreciate the work that he does. Right? I know they flex more than we do. They move their hours around. Mostly tickets and projects done via Teams and email. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like they are maybe a little bit more, a little bit overnight support, and probably a little bit working weird hours because the pay is good.
Right, and if it's a highly ticket-based system versus, talking to people on Zoom meetings and things like that, maybe that could work. Although it absolutely wouldn't work where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this next article, this is something that I've found. I've seen onshoring skilled workers from Wisconsin. Yeah. Then you get the overly polite person that says hi and waits for you to respond, and it takes 2 days to figure out what they wanted. I hate that. I have no problem with people saying hi. Say hi as the beginning of the message. Howdy there, friend. Here's something I need you to do for me. No problem with that. I know that for Microsoft employees, there's a push for. I don't know if the chat view is going to be any good there because it's black on white on white. But for Microsoft employees, there's a push for don't say hi. Just jump right in with your message. I prefer to say hi, but not to wait for a response. Just hello. Here is my problem. Please fix now. They're testing your availability if you're in the mood for a conversation. Yeah. Though, in a lot of cases, it ends up being more annoying because now it's like, okay, so if I'm available, easily available, all right, no harm done. But if you message me at 9 p.m. with a hi and nothing else, I'm going to wait 12 hours just to spite you at this point. Whereas if you drop the message, hey, we're going to push this code tomorrow, or hey, there's a meeting happening, or hey, production is broken. All right, now I have enough information that I know whether I'm going to respond to this or not. But
oh yeah, I mean, 25 cents a minute. Oh yeah, I've lived through those times. Even more than that, actually. What was that phone company? I remember the computer to AT&T. Something with an M. I forget.
MTT.
MTT? Maybe.
MTT.
Yeah.
Granted, I also do the same with our CIO. You know what, Anders? I respect that.
Yeah.
Again, same rules going to apply. MTT. Yep. Same rules are going to apply.
MCM. I think it was MCM.
MCI.
MCI. MCI. That's correct.
Okay. What was MTT then? Now I have to look this up.
MCI was a phone company that used to charge 35 to 45 cents per minute to talk to India, and my bills used to be astronomical during that time.
Huh. Apparently MTT was something totally different. There's an NTT. Yeah, I knew about NTT, Nippon Telegraph and Telephone. Yes, that was totally different. I had MTT in my mind, but then I looked up. The only thing that was MTT were MTTSAs, which that's not telephones. But actually, speaking of prices, speaking of ridiculous prices, this blog post from Thomas Rushton. So Thomas is UK based, and he noticed, hey, we have some reserved instances. And the whole point of having a reserved instance in Azure is the fact that your price is stable. You pay a fixed amount. So you have cost certainty. But some of you may already have figured out where we're going with this. So here is what one of his customers had. And you can see the bars are not exactly flat. And you might wonder, wait a minute, what's going on here? Now, there is a 31 days versus 30 days cost difference. Small difference there. But October was significantly higher than the other months around it. But with dollar tanking, Anders, this is actually the opposite. So most months it's pretty similar. You do have a small difference where you can tell 31 versus 30 days. And what happened? Why did this price go up in October and go back down? Well, it's because Microsoft pricing is in US dollars. And they then use market exchange rates to bill in your currency of choice. And so these were billed in UK pounds, as you can see from the very small graphic in here. Hopefully you can see from it. If you can't, get closer to your screen. I can't because I don't want to get away from my microphone. I am purposefully trying to speak into the clown's mouth this week. So we'll see how well that works. So what happened is that in September of 2022, this was 3 years ago. This was a few years back. In September of 2022, there was a mini budget in the UK that led to a brief but significant reaction in currency markets. So, in other words, the pound fell against the dollar in September of 2022, and it just so happened that right when Microsoft was doing their billing for Azure in that month, a bunch of people had to pay extra money because the exchange rate was abnormally weak at that point. So Thomas has this chart. Basically, you have the peak right here. Right around that peak was when the billing came through. This was not purposefully done. This was not Microsoft like trying to find the exact day of the month that was going to maximize their Azure costs, but instead just unlucky. that was your day. That was, some customers, that's going to be your day of the month where you get to pay extra money. And it only lasted a few days, but Azure prices went up for that point. So that was something that normally I don't think we spend a lot of time thinking about. And if you are denominating all of your currencies, if you're using the same currency as a consistent denominator, you don't have to think about exchange rates. But if you are based outside of the US, well, Microsoft does its financial calculations in US dollars. And so that's a little bit fun. Fun little story type of thing that you don't normally think about until somebody says, wait a minute, I'm paying a fixed amount. I budgeted X number of pounds. Why is it X plus 1,000 or X plus whatever? In this case, let me just double check the image because I think $14,800 per month. Actual cost 63,000 pounds. So 10K for them. It looked like it was about 1,000 pounds over what they would have expected. So yeah, that's not going to break the bank for most companies, I would hope. You're talking like a 10-12% difference. But still, if you just have a one-off, oops, your bill just went up 12%. Why did it go up 12%? Well, because exchange rates. It's kind of fun. She also goes, hi, Anders, can you help with? So we have good chats. Yeah, exactly. That's all you have to do. You can be friendly. You can say hi. It's okay. Just also explain what you're doing. So 2022, that was a rough year for England. That was, if I remember right, that was about the time where you had a new prime minister every 12 seconds. It was a great time. I mean, Mike was prime minister for 12 seconds, so it was pretty neat. He didn't actually get anything done, but what else is new? That's as far as I'm going with politics in today's episode of Shop Talk. Unless we're going to talk about Austro-Hungarian politics. I am always down for discussions on the dual monarchy. We can always have those discussions. But because this is actually secretly it's Austro-Hungarian talk, it's just you all didn't know about it. Shop was the way of sneaking it through the censors. All right. Next article. Next point of discussion. I think this is a good one as well. This one is from John Deerdorf. So John is a good fellow. John is one of the best people in the Indiana area. So I give him credit for being at least top 35 person in the state of Indiana. He might be as high as 30. I haven't actually tabulated them all, so I don't want to sell John short. But minimum top 35 in the state of Indiana. And if John needs that, if he wants to put that on his resume, I will allow it. I will actually back it up. I will act as a reference, and if people ever call me, I will say, yes, John is definitely a top 35 person in the state of Indiana. And then they'll ask what the criteria are, and the mustache is one of the criteria. So John has an amazing mustache. It's actually more amazing in person. If you attend, you'll realize that everything is true of that country's also the opposite. In other words,
John is an amazing, kind, humble, great person to know.
There are a few of those people.
Yep.
All right. So anyhow, my joking aside, except for John being a top 35 person, he actually is. That one's not a joke. But John has some teaching tips. Teaching technical topics. The first tip apparently is always alliterate. Always be alliterating. Always alliterating. So here are John's top 10 technical teaching tips for technical translations and success. Set clear expectations. And I will say, probably about 8 of these I fully agree with. 2 of them I say I agree with maybe in the breach, but clear expectations, I think, very important. If you're going to teach a technical topic, if you're going to give a presentation, if you're going to speak at work, if you're going to use this as an opportunity while you're getting mugged to have something that you can put on your MVP form. Like, yes, I got robbed, but I also taught this guy about how to take a database backup. So, I got robbed, but also I got something out of it. I wouldn't recommend, I don't recommend doing that kind of thing, but maybe if you follow these tips, you won't even get your wallet stolen. Maybe they'll be like, wow, that was so informative, I'm going to give you back your wallet. That's a possibility. It's very low likelihood, but it is above 0%. So clear expectations. Make sure that people know what it is that we're going to talk about. Make sure that if you're giving a session on Polybase, that you make it clear, here are the things that we're going to talk about with Polybase. We are not going to set up alternatives. We're not going to set up Cassandra database or Postgres or whatever. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the configuration options for Oracle. We're going to see, how does Polybase work? Make sure that people know what it is and how interactive. If people are coming in expecting that this is going to be hands-on labs and it's not, that can be disappointing. So I can give you the $20 in my wallet, or I can give you $500 worth of training. I'll take the $20, Solomon. Thank you. Thank you in advance. All right. So ask learners about their expectations. This is admittedly a thing that I do not do. And I do it on purpose. The reason I do it on purpose is I'm not going to tailor my delivery very much. I'm not going to modify slides. I'm not going to suddenly switch out sections. I may additionally alliterate, but not suddenly switch out sections. So, yeah, you can tailor your delivery. If you have the type of presentation where you can break out sections and modules and focus only on those things, okay, that's fair. I think that's reasonable. But also, if you're delivering training to a company, that's a totally different story. You are absolutely right, Anders. Depending on the amount of money that you're paying and the expectations. If I'm delivering to a class of 500 people, I'm not tailoring. Sorry, but no matter what option I choose, there's going to be some percentage of the audience who doesn't know it, who needs a refresher on it, or who thinks they know it but really don't. If you're talking about, I'm doing training for like 5 people and they're all at the same company, yeah, 100%, that's a tailoring opportunity. And if we're talking, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days training. So one example of tailoring training. I did a security training almost 15 years ago now, and I was literally the only person in that training. I was using state dollars. So I worked for the state of Ohio, and they had $3,500 a year that I could spend on training. So I would take these trainings, and for one of them, I was the only person. For another one, I was one of like 3 people. So when I was the only person, I just talked with the instructor, and he's like, okay, I need to give you certain information because it's required as part of the certification exam. It's required as part of the training process. And the rest of this, we're going to talk through. We're going to figure out where you're at and then build off of there. So in that scenario, yes. But if we're talking about 1 hour at a user group or 1 hour at a SQL Saturday or a Raleigh Day of Data coming up May 23rd, 2026, sign up at dayofdata.org. Check out that advertisement. I think that might have been my smoothest advertisement yet. But in those situations, no, I've got a plan. And my plan is based off of having discussed things with people before, having conceptualized what I think a good delivery looks like. It's called a plug. It's a good one. Yeah, definitely. Definitely was a nice plug. And in that case, if I'm wrong, if people come up and say, hey, I would have preferred to learn about these things, I can modify my training. If it feels like people are getting lost or getting bored, I can modify the training, but that's not something I necessarily trust at the time of. So that's why I don't ask people about their expectations coming in. And also, most people don't give you information on expectations. They're like, yeah, whatever. What do you expect to get out of this? What do you hope to learn? You might get 2 people who answer. So unless you're trying to force this information out of dozens of people, and even then, what'll happen is you'll have 2-3 people who really care, 15 people who kind of care but just don't know how to give you an answer, and then like 12 people who are there because, like Marshawn Lynch, I'm here so I don't get fined. And as a result, you're not going to get much useful information. Are you going to tailor to those people? Probably not. So, okay. That's a lot of information about 2. I harped on it a bit because it is one that I conceptually can agree with, and I think Anders has a good point of this is a situation where 2 can make sense. But if we're talking about a regular training, I don't think it's going to matter that much. Be confident and clear. That one absolutely does matter. Matters a whole lot. A presenter who is providing information can give good information, is not tripping all over their words. Their pacing is fine. They're not just motor mouthing their way through, trying to finish the race in time to get home. That's good. Now, breathing. I actually joke about this a lot, that when I go before, especially online presentations, I will joke and say that I will take questions at any point in time because otherwise I wouldn't breathe, which is fair. I do tend to just keep going. But I also have this tendency to pause unnecessarily in the middle of sentences, so that's also a thing. In a perfect world, I might have neither. I might be able to pace things a little bit better, but I do think, be confident, do practice introductions. When I was getting started with speaking, I walked through entire sessions. I would do it in a mirror or in front of a computer. I would record myself sometimes. I would try whatever I could to try to understand how I looked and how I behaved. I don't do that so much anymore, but that's because so many of these things have become ingrained over literally hundreds of these presentations. So I think that is a really good thing if you are someone who is fairly new or maybe not incredibly confident in speaking. Definitely get that practice in. Practice the introduction, the first 2-3 minutes. That type of thing is going to set the tone for the rest of the presentation. So I do recommend spend a little bit of time and think about how you want to show yourself in those first few minutes. My first speech to a user group, my note card said, number 1, introduce yourself. Number 2, speak. Number 3, wrap it up. I totally believe you on that, Anders. I'm pretty sure you probably just came in there. Just start talking about stuff. Just sit down, grab a note card, grab a whiteboard, and just start scribbling things and chatting. And some people can do that. But for everybody else, keep it simple. 100% agree, keep it simple. Try as best as you can, clearly explain things. I am a firm believer in the idea that unless you can clearly explain something, you don't understand it fully.
Uh-huh.
Even if
that's wisely put. That's part of the reason why presenting helps you learn better, is because it's hard to explain anything unless you understand it.
Yep. And it also ties in with the old idea of see one, do one, teach one, where if you're not able to teach a concept to somebody, how well do you actually understand the concept yourself? So I do believe strictly in being able, if you cannot clearly explain something, maybe not 100% of the time, but 85 to 90% of the time, you don't really understand the topic. Even complex topics, you can break down complex topics in such a way that people can understand. And I think it can be a challenge. I think it may require that you have to think about it for a while. You have to try to come up maybe with metaphors, come up with examples. He has visual models, step-by-step breakdowns. Like if we talk about some of the concepts of functional programming, those things are complex. And I think a lot of people don't fully understand some of the concepts. Like if we start talking about monoids and monads, there are a lot of people who don't necessarily understand the terms. Like basically almost anybody in this chat. But that's okay. Somebody who really understands functional programming can give you an explanation. And that explanation should be clear. Now, it may not be a 5-second, 5-word explanation that suddenly causes everything to become elucidated in your mind, but it should be better than muddled jumble. I've thought about teaching information security at the community college for some supplemental dollars. I cringe at the thought of having to teach IPv6 or IPv4 subnetting, though. Goes to your point, I know enough to pass the exams, but not enough to teach it. Yeah, and in fairness, IPv6 is fairly complex when you get into the details of it. IPv4 subnetting, depending on the technology that you're using, depending on the process that you're using, that can be very scary to explain to a normie. So I get it, totally understand that. So I'm not saying every concept should be equally simple to teach, but I will say if you are really knowledgeable in a particular topic, you should be able to take somebody who is reasonably intelligent but is not familiar with the topic and provide them enough information that they could at least say, okay, I get it. Not to become an expert, not to become at your level necessarily. And there are some things where, like, I can't teach differential equations to somebody who doesn't know algebra. So there can be expectations of what your level ought to be. But I can teach some of the intuitions around differential equations to somebody who doesn't have a good grasp of algebra, because I can give visual examples. I can try to explain things in terms of concepts that people do know. So yeah, that is a challenge, a major challenge. But I think the best teachers are able to do just that. Engage the audience through questions. This is actually another thing I don't tend to do very much of, because I don't trust that I'm going to get good answers. There are exceptions. One of the exceptions, I have a talk that I do on data visualization. And one of the things that I do is I show a picture of a perfectly normal dashboard, which is awful. It's a terrible dashboard. And yet you'll see this type of thing everywhere. And I just ask people, what's wrong with this dashboard? I haven't gone through any of the concepts yet. I haven't had a chance to discuss the concepts of visual cognition. So it's the Azure portal, right? It's actually uglier than that.
A good one. And that's a good one.
But yes, Anders does win on this case. And so I let people answer because I do want to have some engagement in that regard. So yes, there are people who can do that. People who can engage through questions well, go for it. I think it's a positive. So I'm not going to disagree. I will just say I don't tend to do that myself. I tend to have certain expectations about what I'm going to drill for. And if somebody has a question, if somebody does want to take a left turn, I think as somebody who is training, yeah, part of it is up to you of how confident are you that you can answer this question? How confident are you that you can veer into the unknown? If the answer is I can't, it's okay. Bring it back. Say, that's a great question. We can come back to that later. But don't just try to mess with stuff just because that's how you end up breaking things in the middle of a demo. And I don't know what's going on, and I'm struggling now because, well, we went down this cul-de-sac that I've never been down before, and now I'm stuck. So that's fair. That's fair. Number 6, let the slides be your guide. In other words, don't let the slides drive you. Don't read them. Do not read them verbatim. I will highlight this. Do not read your slides verbatim. I can read faster than you can speak. Unless you are the Micro Machine guys, in which case, it's pretty close. That guy can speak.
Use PowerPoint notes. They are very, very helpful.
PowerPoint notes can be helpful, yes.
Yeah.
And I don't use those when I'm presenting unless it's a online presentation for a training where things are built in PowerPoint. But in a lot of cases, yeah, you put together these slides. You should know why you put it together. You should know the stories that you're going to tell around it. And
Right.
as a result, the slide is, there are a couple of ways of life for slides. Some people do put a lot of information on slides and just say, this is here as a reference for later. I don't always do that. A lot of the time, I will put just enough of an idea on a slide so that you can come back to it later. But I think that there are better media for providing additional information. And I think that's better suited for a website or for a set of links in a GitHub repo or something versus on a slide. Because on the slide, I want you engaged with what I'm saying, not trying to read 600 words unnecessarily.
Uh-huh.
Do tell stories. Storytelling is how people learn. I think that is a critical skill, and it's example is the school of mankind, and man will learn it no other. So that's important. Explain what's in it for them. I think that is important, especially in certain groups of people. If people have come to your session willingly, they usually have an idea of what's in it for them. If they're paying money, they usually have a good idea, but not always. And so sometimes you do want to explain, here's how we can bring it back. Here's how we can make it interesting for you personally after you leave this room. It's not just for your edification, but also can be for improving job skills or getting a new job or becoming happier or whatever. Becoming Prime Minister of England for 12 seconds. Tell them, teach them, tell them again. That is something that I have started doing. I follow a particular practice called the Great Demo Method. And this is actually more for sales demos, but I've tried to apply it to technical demos as well, where I start off with a few slides on here are the things that we're going to do. I want to show you where we're going to get through, what types of interesting things we're going to do along the way, and then we'll get into the details of how we do that. But I want you to start off with, here's the end product, here's the end result. We're going to build a data application using Streamlit, a Python library for building data apps. Here's the end result of what the Streamlit application is going to do. It's going to have certain bits of functionality. You'll be able to see this. You'll be able to see how you can create graphs very easily, how you can link those graphs together, how you can integrate with language models, all that fun stuff. And then we'll get into the code. We'll get into all the actual doings. So I think, and then at the end, yes, summarize, tell people what it is they learned because they might have forgotten. Open-ended questions, yeah, that's something I'm not good at, but it is a good idea. So in any event, great article from John. Again, easily top 35 person in the state of Indiana. So John's got that going for him. And he also has at the very bottom a little learning guide in an image format. So if you want to take that and print it onto a note card, you can do so. But anyhow, we're going to stop sharing because we're past the top of the hour. We have actually gone over our allotment. Now, what does he have to say about that one person, the one who will ask questions about everything? There are multiple techniques for dealing with that guy. And it depends. I mean, some people, like, yeah, if you're someone like Brent Ozar, your response to that guy is going to be very different than, like, Ola Hallengren. I think both of them can be perfectly reasonable ways of dealing with that guy. And I will do multiple things as well. But, you know, what I typically try to do is if you have the one person who's sort of taking over and you don't want that to happen, sidebar. Hey, that's great, but let's talk about Rampart. What if you, as the presenter, are that guy? The good news is, as the presenter, you get to be that guy. The audience shouldn't be that guy.
Right.
So
that I totally agree. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you are that guy as the presenter, good news. Everybody else can walk out. Why do you think I'm presenting? That's a fair point. It's a fair point. Andrews has got it. Ego trips, they are the best sort of trips. So, speaking of ego trips, tomorrow we have our other meeting of the month. So, from zero to Fabric Hero, build your first analytics solution in 60 minutes. So that's going to happen tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time. That'll be online only. You can check that out, meetup.com/trypass. And until we do see each other, maybe tomorrow, maybe second week of next month, when Klaus Aschenbrenner is going to talk to us about a topic of interest for the advanced DBA subgroup that I can't remember off the top of my head, and thus I am not going to be able to tell you. Or maybe you're in the main meeting on the third week, or another business intelligence, data science, artificial intelligence. In any event, hopefully we'll see you again soon. And until we do see each other, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.